So with the release of Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4, I think it would be the best time to make this video, especially with all the things coming back on Undertale trending again. All the Undertale fans are making posts on all types of media, and especially the upsurge stuff I saw on TikTok from my For You page brick by brick. So this TikTok account made this awesome post on Sukuna versus Chara, and it started a big battle on who would actually win between Sukuna and Chara. Then it went to other things and derailed into Undertale versus JJK, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. So in this video, I'm gonna go through Jujutsu Kaisen scaling and Undertale scaling, mainly using the main character Frisk versus all the people that's notable in Jujutsu Kaisen, and see who actually win a fight if they were to cross paths. So starting off with Team JJK, why not start off with the most popular character, the GOAT, Gojo Satoru, which has the 6 eyes. The 6 eyes is stated to be able to let him to control space on an atomic level, which gives birth to his most infamous ability, Infinity. By manifesting the naturally occurring infinity into reality, which is always around him, Gojo can convert space as an infinite series of fractions, causing an object to approach him, to slow down, and never reach their target, which basically just means the closer you come to him, you just get more and more slow, and to the point where you can never touch him. And the way they use this idea of infinity is akin to Achilles' paradox, where Achilles will never catch the tortoise due to the potential. There's infinite amounts of finite spaces between them, or the real how number 1 is never going to capture number 2 because there's an infinite amount of infinite fractions between them, right? Like 1.1, 1.3, etc, etc. So in turn of having this ability, it makes it where his opponents can never actually really touch Gojo if he doesn't really want them to. It happens passively as his brain automatically filters out danger. It also makes it to the point where not only can you touch him, none of your attacks really can go through the barrier either, which is shown when Jogo tries to hit Gojo, or Sukuna tries to hit Gojo, and it doesn't really do anything at all. He just kind of overfarms. Along with his ability, Gojo also has an ability called Hollow Purple, which basically is him making infinite red and infinite series of blue together to make, well, purple, and he shoots an imaginary mass of space at the opponent, which essentially just kind of erases them from existence. This doesn't really come close to Gojo's ultimate ability, which is called Domain Expansion, which in hindsight is also an ultimate ability for most of the characters in the verse too. But for Gojo specifically, it's called Unlimited Void, which is a metaphysical area, and it targets everyone inside of it, besides Gojo himself and whoever he wants to not get affected, to basically just fill everything and everywhere, suppressing their thoughts and processes altogether by putting an infinite amount of information into them at once. And the potency of this is so strong, when he put normal people into it for like 0.1 seconds, they become in a coma-like state for 3 months. Gojo being consistently stated to be one of the strongest characters inside the verse and the strongest present-day sorcerer, which makes him at least top 3 in the verse, puts him above most of the regular cast, which includes Dagon, which his domain expansion could put an entire sun inside of it, which makes it star level, and then we have other characters like Yuki, who could literally make a black hole. We have another character in the verse known as Akari, who is the chronic gambler of the verse, with his domain expansion named Idle Death Gamble, which I'm not gonna get to the nitty-gritty of how it works. All you really need to know, which is the most important part anyways, is that when he gets a jackpot, he becomes immune for a fully automatic reverse curse technique for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. He practically cannot die. Another character in the verse named Mahito is a special grace curse spirit, which his main ability is to directly touch, manipulate, and harm the soul, and that's basically his whole gimmick, is be able to touch people's souls, which greatly improves the verse in terms of power and capabilities, which means you could pretty much argue that a lot of the characters, or at least some of the characters, more of the higher tiers, could have resistance to soul manipulation and vice versa, or just to attack the soul of other characters, which we know in when Mahito's domain expansion is basically he makes everyone's soul connected inside of it and can transmutate it at will. He's also particularly good at crossroads matchup, because not only is he one of the only characters who could just consistently hit the soul, it's stated that no matter how strong attack is, they don't have no effect on him, because the only way to beat Mahito is to directly attack the soul, which most characters cannot do. And Mahito will continue to regenerate and reform his body again and again, as long as he has cursed energy to spare for his technique to even regenerate in the first place. So he makes it particularly hard to put down in any crossroads matchup against characters who don't have soul manipulation or anything similar. So now we're going to start talking about for speed for a moment, in which we have to bring up another character, which is the strongest in the Heian era, which is Kashimo, the GOAT. So when Kashimo uses his secret technique called Mythical Beast Amber, which is an L name, but regardless, he's still the GOAT. It transforms Kashimo's body, rendering any phenomenon that can be created by electricity a weapon for his arsenal. So anything that has anything to do with electricity just makes it a weapon for him. And he has an attack that uses electromagnetic waves to attack his opponent was Sukuna, which he's able to dodge multiple times over and over. And Gojo was able to fight Sukuna, not this particular form of Sukuna, but a weaker version, but he should be around similar types of speed anyways. And Gojo, Sukuna, and Kashimo are considered the strongest in each of their eras, so they should be relative in speed and combat anyways. But regardless of the fact, this is more for the JJK versus upscaling in general, and we know electromagnetic waves move the same speed as light does in the air, which would make a light speed attacks, and these characters able to dodge and reflect it over and over and fight each other would make them at least light speed, but we know this should make them faster than light characters as well. Another character we have to mention is Mahoraga, which is one of the best abilities in the verse, which he's known for reactive evolution and adaptation. And the way Mahoraga's ability works is that a Mahoraga has the ability to adapt to any and all phenomena within the verse. And the way it's described in the verse is that Mahoraga only needs to experience a phenomena a single time for the adaptation process to begin, and then as he gets more and more of the same phenomena hitting him over and over, so let's say you have a fireball and you hit him with it, he's gonna start being resistant to fire manipulation, and if you hit him 4 more times, it speeds the process to the point where he's fully adapted to fire manipulation. And even after he fully adapts to something, he still continues to adapt anyways. So Mahoraga is similar to a Amazo type character from Justice League or a Darwin from Marvel, who just consistently adapts to situations that happen in front of him over and over until it renders him useless. And we know his adaptation actually works very well and has very high potency because he's able to adapt and alter the very nature of his own curse energy to bypass people's other curse energy techniques in the verse, which is how he got past Gojo's Infinity, which Sukuna used as a blueprint for him to bypass Gojo's Infinity as well with the World Cutting Slash. And it's stated the way he does that is that he uses his own ability to target space, existence, and the world itself to cut through Infinity and slash Gojo. And the last guy we're going to mention for Team JJK is the man who started this whole debate itself, Ryome Sukuna, the King of Curses, and the actual strongest character of the verse. He is also probably the best character to use for this matchup as well. For one, he beat Gojo. He has abilities that go bypass Infinity and what it can do. He has Mahoraga as a summon, so he could make it a 1v2 and fight with Mahoraga along with him. And he could directly attack people's soul because he's able to beat up and beat the shit out of Mahito whenever he tried it. Not to mention, he's the only character in the verse who's able to fight Kashimo within his state, which was specifically meant for Sukuna, and Sukuna still washed and killed him anyways. Sukuna also has a devious ability where he's able to transfer damage into Megami's soul who's inside of him. For example, when Gojo used the domain expansion and put it to Megami so he wouldn't get affected. Sukuna also has one of the best domain expansions in the verse, also the strongest domain in the verse, only being rivaled by Gojo himself, and every time they have domain clash, he won every time pretty much. But the way it works is that it doesn't enclose, it's not enclosed domain, it's an open area where it paints the air itself, quote unquote, and the way it has a bounding valve where people can't escape from it, but the range is 200 meters anyways, so it's not like people are going to escape from that shit anyways because you're about to get shredded to bits. And the way it really works, it has 2 types of slashing attacks inside of it. Cleave is used to adjust the curse energy output based on how tough you are. So if you're like a sponge, it's going to use low curse energy, and if you're tough as diamond, for example, it's going to use more curse energy to get through the toughness and kill you anyways. And until his domain is gone, he'll hit everything relentlessly over and over and passively until there's nothing left until the domain's over, with a short hit guarantee affecting, which makes it so if you're inside his domain expansion, he has a guaranteed 100% chance to hit you no matter what, which is also another thing I forgot to mention, which all domains have pretty much. And when I mean 200 meters, I mean 200 meters of nothing, because when he used it and he popped it in Shibuya and we saw the aftermath, it was a big ass crater in the ground, and every single building, object, and person that was inside of it was atomized. And with that being said, we reached the conclusion of the JJK scaling portion of the video, and the final tallies are that the verse is star level with fast and light scaling, and a bunch of abilities will help in the battle, such as adaptation, soul manipulation, sure hit guarantee effects, immortality, and so on. Now it's time to scale Undertale to see, does Undertale actually compete with JJK, or does JJK actually watch Undertale? And let's get to the scaling of the verse, where I'll be using Frisk, the main character from the game. Now for Undertale, we're going to start with the main character, Frisk, which is the player you play as for each route in the game. We know levels are actually translated in the verse to be levels of violent, which stands for his love, in which every time they kill someone, they level up and get experience because, they just killed someone and got more violent. We start from level 1, all the way to level 20, but she does impressive stuff even from level 1 all the way to level 20. Now, starting off with some of her basic abilities, we're going to start off by using Check. Check is an ability she has from every level in the game, where she just checks the opponent and she can see how strong they are and how much defense they have, so she could use her own abilities to assess the situation and see how much power she needs to use to kill the opponent. One of Frisk's main abilities, also known as Determination, which is something all human souls have and something monster souls don't really particularly have. From Dr. Alfie, he states, "You see, unlike humans, monsters' bodies don't have enough physical matter to take these high levels of concentration of determination. If they do, their body starts to melt," which happens to Undyne when she got too determined and her body started melting and she died. In Undertale isn't exactly the same determination you would think. It's something that comes from human souls specifically and is believed to be what gives the souls the strength to persist even after death, which is the will to keep living, to change fate itself. So that is exactly what they mean by determination, which is the resolve to keep living and even change fate itself. We know this actually can happen in a verse with the same person, like Undyne. Undyne actually died inside the game when you kill her, but she has so much determination to kill you and want to keep living that she changed fate from her dying and repeats her soul back together to fight you one more time. And then when you kill her again, then she started to melt because she had way too much determination for her own good. And around the in-game level, when you fight Azure Dreamer, it's stated that determination is what got them that far in the first place and is going to be quote-unquote their downfall. It wasn't, by the way. But determination is also able to increase your stats, because before this you could die from the average monster, which is game mechanics, by the way, but you can still die from monsters in the game if you just let them kill you. But in this battle, Azure Dreamer, who also has infinite attack stats and infinite defense stats, which is also universal stats for the characters, and the same Azure Dreamer was going to destroy the entire timeline, bomb the timeline. Frisk takes no damage from it, and then he uses the same attack later on and then uses it on the main character point blank, and they got a hyper death mode, which is a stronger mode than before, and you don't die from it, you just take damage over time, but your determination is so strong it won't kill you. Similar to Mahito, humans and Undertales also have the power to take other people's souls, mostly monster souls. For example, when Asgore died, he asks you to take his power, to take his soul to leave his place. In another place in Undertale, it's stated a boss monster soul is the strongest enough to persist even after death, which a boss monster is like Undyne or Asgore, etc. And it only lasts for a few moments before it breaks, and a human could actually absorb this soul, but it's never happened before. Which means that when they beat up an opponent, they could just take their souls and gain their powers and abilities. We know you gain their powers and abilities because this is what Azure did for the verse. He took every soul in the underground and became the strongest person in the universe, which gave him infinite attack stats and infinite defense stats. And this is the same opponent we have to fight just at level 20 for our own soul, which just shows how much human soul is compared to every monster fusion in the underground. Another thing I want to say before people start getting confused or anything like that happens is that Frisk can actually directly harm people's souls in a verse, which happens every time to kill them, because every time someone dies in the verse, she breaks their soul in half and it shatters to a billion pieces and kills them. They could also fight spiritual creatures in the verse and could take direct soul attacks consistently without dying from a single shot. Another thing I want to mention in this video is Frisk's main ability in the game, which has started a lot of controversial arguments about how it works and stuff, which I'm gonna just clear it up right now, which is the save load file in the game. The save load file isn't actually a game mechanic, it's something which is canon inside the verse. We know multiple characters can use, like Flowey in his final boss battle when he turns to Mega Flowey. He uses the save load file over and over again just to spawn camp you inside the timeline, and changes your own save file to make it so you spawn there to consistently kill you and die over and over until the other souls come to help you and bail you out. We know save files in the game are actually the timelines itself instead of how we see save files in the average game. And it's also canon in the game anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So it's not a game mechanic. You don't have to be in a game to do it, because save files in the game or timelines itself called as save files, save and load. For example, every time Frisk is able to die or ever does die in the verse, she could go back in time to the save file where she saved and just fight over and over again, where she gets better mastery at fighting the set opponent. So let's say she fights Gojo or Sukuna or Superman or whatever they want, and they kill her, she goes back to the save file, redo the fight all over again with even higher determination than before, which gives her higher stats, which makes her more determined to kill your opponent until she eventually does. We also know in the pacifist route, even at level 1, she got so much determination, even where she does end up dying when she fights Agile Dreamer, instead of reloading back in time, she has so much determination, she just spawns right back together. Her soul breaks and she just refused to die. Like verbatim just says, nah, I don't want to die, and comes back to life, full HP and everything to fight all over again. With this being said, especially with the fact she comes back full HP with everything she has, it will also bring up stamina issues for the opposing side, where if they can fight the said character forever until they lose stamina and they eventually die because they can't move no more. We have other instances of talking about a save load file. For example, when Fly was talking to Chara, he was talking about he doesn't want to live anymore, not without love, etc., etc. So instead, he decided to erase himself from existence, and he actually succeeded in the fact. But then later on, he felt apprehensive about it, and he didn't even have a soul. He's like, okay, now what? I don't really want to die. So just from that alone, he woke up back to a save point, which means you don't really even need a soul to go back to your save point, even if you want to argue that or not. But it doesn't matter, because even if you erase yourself from existence, you can still come back. And to bring up some speed feats for Frisk, in case it wasn't kind of blatant before, she's able to fight Agile Dreamer in a realm with no time or space at all, because Agile Dreamer just literally bombed that timeline away, and they're like, you know what, we're gonna fight regardless. They could also fight against Omega Flowey, who was switching timelines back and forth with the save load file, and you can move between the timelines without any hinder to your speed at all, which will also grant immeasurable speed for the character as well, which along with the inaccessible speed feat will move in no time. But we know Agile Dreamer should be stronger than Omega Flowey anyways, because it's fusion of every soul in the underground with the best stats in the game, even with Omega Flowey, who has 6 other human souls fused together inside of him anyways. So they're fighting Agile Dreamer, who should be immeasurable speed as well. Another thing I want to bring up is that's a lot of people having very controversial arguments about, is if the save load files could actually work if they just bomb the timeline and like, okay, I win, GG's, and walk away, which is something they can do, especially in a neutral ground verse where, you know, there's no tutorial or sans or anything like that to make the character not want to do that. It stated that one being with the power to erase everything, which is talking about yourself, you have the power to do that, and everyone will be ripped away from the timeline, which even first include that this is talking about timelines and not actual game code, which means she could just bomb the timeline and one-shot all of the JJK people anyways. So concluding their first scaling right now, she would be Universal Plus, because they're able to bomb timelines and tank timelines from other characters. They should have immeasurable speed with at least inaccessible speed, because you're able to move in realms without time. Then you have multiple consistent immeasurable speed scaling from multiple different routes in the game. And besides that, there's really nothing that JJK characters can really do to even fight Frisk or any other character in the verse, really, like Agile Dreamer or Omega Flowey, who them in their own right could just solo all of JJK if they really wanted to. We know that Hikari's 4 minutes 11 seconds doesn't really matter, because for one, he could get speed blitz before he even pulls it off, and even if he does, they would just erase him from existence, so there's nothing to regenerate from him in the first place, and his reverse curse technique doesn't really matter. Mahito's soul manipulation wouldn't do anything to these characters, because every character in the verse, even to the random frogs, could hurt your soul directly, and they're able to take these attacks back to back from stronger levels of opponency all the way well to frog level. The strongest AP the verse has is star level with Dagon and the black hole stuff. Undertale has consistent universal plus feats, which is done bombing timelines back to back over and over. Gojo's Infinity wouldn't really work anyways, because they have multiple gates to get around it. For example, the save load files, the timeline manipulation, just attacking the sword directly, which doesn't really inherently need space to do that. We know she's too fast, so she was just blitz through Infinity anyways, because Infinity only really works against finite numbers, and anything faster than that, we just walk through it like nothing even was even existing. And even if you want to make the argument that could somehow stop people who are measurable with infinite speed and stuff, they could just erase the timeline, and assuming Gojo could even live that, you know, place with no air, oxygen stuff, there'd be no space or time for him to manipulate anyways, and he usually gets speed blitz one-shotted by like half the verse. The only possible win conditions you could do to even beat Frisk is Gojo's Unlimited Void domain expansion, where they put infinite information in the brain, not necessarily to kill Frisk, but to render them into an unconscious KO state where they're unable to fight because there's so much information overloading them. But this really wouldn't work, because we know Frisk could actually handle this much amount of information, because she's able to manipulate and remember infinite timelines and infinite possibilities if she so wanted to, which is also shown with Omega Flowey reading every book, doing every book, etc, etc, etc. You know, that meme and stuff. Like, they just live infinite timelines and do whatever they want to do to the point to get bored. Even Chara could do it, which is the dead girl that people like to talk about. Maharaga can't really do anything because he just gets one-shotted before he can even adapt. We know this is possible with Fuga, so couldn't use Fuga and one-shot him before he could adapt to it instantly. And even if he somehow did adapt, they could just go back in time to the point where he doesn't adapt and kill him regardless. So with that being said, we have the conclusion of the fight between Frisk versus all of JJK. Is that, well, Frisk would just manslaughter and embarrass the entire cast, no diff, but multiple different ways and different possibilities. They can be like infinite routes of how she could beat them all, and there's really nothing any of them could do. The speed is too high, the hex gap's too big. They came and killed Frisk due to determination, etc, etc. But if you guys would like a more in-depth video on the Undertale scaling, because I didn't even go through everything, I just went through some of the more things everyone kind of know about, then I can make that video. Comment down below and like the video. And hopefully this video reaches out to people who are debating this topic over and over to this day on TikTok and other pieces of media that, well, JJK doesn't really stand a chance and ends the debate once and for all. But with that being said, subscribe and stay tuned for the next video coming out.